I don't think it's an overstatement to say that we are living in a kleptocracy, right? Uh, this country has always been by, for, and about rich people, specifically rich white people. But I honestly don't even think that's the case anymore. I don't think that really matters as much as some people might think. But there's no doubt that this country was set up by and for the wealthy. And somehow they pulled off the trick of taking these really rich, slave-owning businessmen who were our founding fathers and turned them into like impeccable moral heroes. This is really something even George Washington like didn't want. And in the beginning of this country, we did not put real humans on money, on any of our coins for a specific reason. It was because we did not want to venerate humans into this sort of godlike status that you achieve by putting them on a coin or a statue or engraving them, in perpetuity into our collective memory, if you will. Right? It's hard not to think of George Washington as almost like a superhumanly, perfect kind of guy, right? I mean, sure he had slaves, and sure he owned a few people, but besides that, we're very honorable. Like, you want to really listen to what this guy said. So there's a baked-in hypocrisy to being the president specifically of the United States, but I think it's baked into most leadership positions, but specifically the presidency. And let me just take it in a different direction here. This is what I originally thought was like the best thing about Donald Trump being elected president, right? There's a lot of things people would say are bad, and there's a lot of things some people would say are good. I think what it did was it stripped away the last sort of vestige of a veil of moral supremacy, moral culpability, even in the U.S. president. Like, there's a good portion of people who just automatically thought if you made it to be the president, there was just something inherently good about you. Like, even guys like the guy who I thought probably strained this the most was George W. Bush, who I still think is the worst U.S. president in my lifetime. Just simply based on lying us into war and killing so many people as a result of that. Right? That alone puts you at the top of the list. Joe Biden's right behind him. But you know what? Not really far behind those guys, to me, is somebody like Bill Clinton, who most people my age, most Gen Xers you talk to, are going to have a super positive recollection of the Clinton era, even though he did so many anti-progressive things. Besides shutting down welfare as we know it, and which you could view as a positive or a negative, right? Some people view it as very positive, some people as very negative. One thing that he did, and I called him on it when it was happening, because I was a broadcasting student, and I wrote a paper on something called the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which was signed into law by Clinton. And it's basically what set the stage for the media hellscape that we see before us today. There used to be really, really strict laws about concentration of ownership among local television stations. So, like, it used to be every town had one or two or three local broadcast TV stations that they might do news and they might do original programming, like local programming. They might play some reruns, local stations, right? In the Bay Area, Channel 2, Channel 44, Coffee, Channel 20, right? TV 20 is one of my favorites because they were one of the last to really resist the corporatization of television stations that happened in the wake of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. You don't have little quirky UHF stations anymore that are just like doing their thing, programming, selling some ads, making some money, doing things for the community. Doesn't really exist anymore. They're all owned by a couple of big companies, of course, national companies that were only allowed to consolidate this like mass media power as a result of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. This was Bill Clinton. Talk about Obama, right? And the huge way he escalated our drone warfare overseas, specifically also killing American citizens without trial via drone. That's not a great thing, right? That's not a thing a great man does. Sorry. Even Jimmy Carter, who, many think of as like the last honest president, and I think of him as a really decent human guy, especially the stuff he did after he was president, Habitat for Humanity, etc. He was a good man. That doesn't mean he wasn't the first of what we call neoliberals, right? And the neoliberal, most people think it sort of began in the Reagan era. When they talk about neoliberalism, weird to say liberal and Reagan, right? But this is the definition was, they were going to privatize all these government things. Now, that's part of me. There's part of me that says that's a good idea. Part of me that knows it's probably not. But no matter what you say, all presidents have mixed legacy. Jimmy Carter included, for his deregulation of many things, including airlines and a few other things. And then you look at a guy like Richard Nixon, who everybody says, well, terrible, right? Had to resign in disgrace. But then they go, oh, but did you know he also was the creator of the EPA? How can you be against something called the Environmental Protection Agency? Well, you can be in favor of protecting the environment and not be in favor of a group like the EPA. Personally, I think, Congress exists for a reason, to pass laws, and a lot of this stuff gets shunted off onto Department of Education, EPA, etc. That lets just Congress coast, sit back, and really do almost nothing, right? They do so little for us. In the long run and the short run. So back to the presidency and Donald Trump. Why should we think he's any better than anybody who came before him, better or worse, right? He's as self-interested as any other president. He's just super brazen in his style, and it's a style that many people find like visceral discomfort in. Personally, he repels me like any game show host / New York real estate developer / used car salesman / crypto shitcoin merchant. There's nothing in me that would let me follow a guy like that. Not just vote for him, but espouse his ideas as so great when they're so patently self-interested and or deluded. I honestly think that the guy probably has, nobody, it's on that stupid hat, right? They want to make America great again. Whatever that means, disagree or agree with it. The intention is make America great. And it's just their definition of greatness and their methodology to go about getting that. And tell me this, identify the place back in time where I could be, I don't know, let's just say a woman or a person of color or a woman of color, and things are better. right? Let's go back, and the further you go back in time, the worse things are getting. So when did they get good? Right? When like the Civil Rights Act was signed, and then everything was great, right? Like we needed that, but that's when everything was equal at that point, and now screw everybody. This is what a lot of people think. This is what a lot of conservatives will try to delude themselves into thinking, and a lot of liberals will say that nothing the government does can be bad. You can't criticize any government policy in any way and not be labeled as some kind of like, you're anti-government, or you don't care about people. You don't care enough. This is the thing that the left wing, particularly Democrats, they've tried to seize the moral high ground, okay? In this last election, they played that to the hilt. Literally coming out in the last days of the election with Hitler analogies and just throwing as much negativity at a guy like Trump, and in a way that was so over the top and had come in the wake of so many years of obviously exaggerated claims about Russiagate, all that silly stuff, the crazy news coverage that took so many things out of context that it became very difficult to take the legitimate criticisms of Donald Trump. And there are so many related to his policies that you could make. And it just sort of like whitewashed him in a fog of nonsense, right? And it's this fog of nonsense that led the media to get a lack of credibility, and those screaming Hitler to have a lack of credibility, right? And they gave credibility to a game show host / real estate developer. He's now getting sworn in as we speak. Those people that swore he was a fascist, a Hitler in the making, and a threat to democracy are bending over backwards to welcome him to the White House and to sign him completely into power. As they should. He won the election, but what does that say about all your over-the-top protestations about what this man was, and then to now just sort of drop that once you've lost the election? They've ceded a lot of that moral high ground. They don't even realize it. They think they've got it. And they just gave more credit, put more credit in Trump's bank, to the point where nobody could believe anything that was being said about the guy, good or bad. Now, I'll admit, I was as anti-Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as you could get in this election, but I was not pro-Trump. That sounds stupid, and that's what everybody said. That's what so many people said about Palestinians and others who could not and would not support a genocider like Biden and a genocider by proxy like Harris, right? We could not support them. But that doesn't mean we wanted Trump. Some did. I definitely didn't. And while I knew that the result of Trump would be horrible for Palestinians, and bad in a lot of ways for a lot of people in this country, especially immigrants, I also knew that we were getting nothing in the way of promises, truth in the promises from Biden. Biden had power to do so much, still has the power to do so much, did nothing. And it was that, lack of humanity in the face of calling your opponent Hitler while you were actively supporting genocide that created a cognitive dissonance in many people, that even if it didn't make them vote for Trump, it just made them not want to show up for Biden and Harris. Either not vote for them or hold their nose, reluctantly vote for them, but certainly not go out and campaign for them, certainly not go out and talk up the virtues of them. I mean, some people did, but those people really looked like shills and dummies, in my opinion, including a lot of my friends, and they look even stupider now, especially those people that are still trying to defend Biden. Biden came out recently and is like, oh, basically saying, oh, I could have won. This was Harris's fault. And Harris came out saying, oh, I might run again, right? Oh my God. They don't realize at all. And their campaign has gone on all the talk shows and talked about how they ran a perfect campaign. That was Joy Reid on MSNBC said they ran a perfect campaign. Couldn't have been any better. It was just the racist dummies that that voted or didn't vote, taking nothing into account about Harris's awful campaign, terrible flip-flopping kind of messages on price fixing. Anything populist got squelched because her donor base was the same donor base as Trump, rich people, right? Those are the people that really move the needle for a presidential candidacy in terms of fundraising. And man, all the big difference from Trump, and I'll end it here. The big difference with Donald Trump is he just laid it bare from the very beginning. He said, you scratch my back, I will scratch yours. And he did it. He did it for Sheldon Adelson by declaring Jerusalem as the capital of Palestine in return for campaign contributions. And he's going to do it for his wife, Miriam Adelson, when Israel annexes the West Bank, including my ancestral homeland. I'm not going to be surprised to see it happen. And every single one of Trump's appointees is so much of a pro-Israel stooge, it's ridiculous. Like, I've never seen the ambassador to Israel being Mike Huckabee and his grotesque statements about Palestinians they don't exist. That's not a real thing. Palestine's not a thing. What a dummy. But, we got through 4 years of this thing, of the first Trump presidency. We'll get through this next 4. What we have to do is we've got to keep our eyes focused on the ball. Be willing to call out the president when they do something bad and give them kudos for doing something good, right? Biden had some good rulings as far as the NLRB in labor unions, although he did throw the train union under the train tracks, under the train wheels, whatever, so to speak. But, he had some things. The FTC, a lot of people were in favor of Lena Khan at the FTC and her anti-monopoly positions. I gave some credit to that, and I liked his pro-unionness. I was ready to vote for him before what happened. So let's not belabor this anymore, except let's say we're going to watch Trump. We're going to call him out on those things where his policies are bad, but we're also not going to buy into the hype from those who are trying to make money off things like the Steele dossier and the P tapes and all this nonsense that provided the fog that is what allowed Trump to pull the wool over the people's eyes. The fog and the wool, is that the name of the video? I don't know. Maybe. If you like this thing, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, but let me know. Give me your opinion, what I could be doing differently. Also, let me know, what do you think about the kleptocracy that we're entering into, the naked kleptocracy, where the richest man in the world, and you can officially say that because he's almost doubled his wealth since Trump's election, where the richest man in the world has decided he's going to take a very, very active role in shaping U.S. politics. It's a fascinating world we're going into. Will we self-destruct by the end of this administration? It's possible. Would that be the worst thing in the world? It will be bad for a lot of people, but it might be the only way out of the mess that is the U.S. kleptocracy. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.